Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everyone.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer insights and ideas for how emerging small and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can establish and grow their business.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean all aspects involved in establishing and growing brands across channels and platforms. On our show, we bring on guests that are brand founders, leaders, investors, as well as all kinds of suppliers to these emerging brands that are subject matter experts to share their unique insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please follow the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. Let's get to today's episode.
So Bruce, tell us about our newest sponsor.
Glad to, Tracy. Tired of getting crushed by chargebacks each time your brand sells product? From dealing with hundreds of forms that all look different to fighting tooth and nail to get repays, managing deductions is tough work. And you're almost certainly leaving money on the table. Fortunately, there's a solution. Floret was built to help brands like yours. With Floret's software platform, you can automate your deductions workflow, get insight into your trade spend, and even have your deductions disputed for you. Whether you're a scrappy young brand trying to break into retail or an established supplier looking to get sharper on trade, Floret will put money back in your pocket. We've saved brands hundreds of thousands of dollars this year alone. Visit www.tryfloret.com to book a demo and learn more. That's www.tryfloret.com.
Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road2 Retail. Managing retail is complex. The review windows, the buyer relationships, promotions, distributor coordination, the follow-ups that fall through the cracks. And most brands are juggling all of it across multiple tools. VizMerch is the first CRM built specifically for CPG brands. Retailers' category review cycles, promotions, contacts, all connected in one platform. We would like to extend a special offer to the Road to Retail listeners. We are making available the VizMerch Trade Show Tracker for free. Keep track of all of your trade show activities. You can download it now from the show notes in this episode, just in time for Expo West.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of The Road to Retail. Tracy Priest, how are you this morning, my friend?
I am doing fantastic, Bruce. Great to see you. Great episode today. So what are we going to talk about since it's just you and me today?
Yeah. So it's torture for the audience, but we'll try to do our best anyhow. So it's coming up on trade show season in many, many industries. And Tracy and I have done this before, but it always bears repeating because your brand's getting some traction. You're thinking of making the investment to attend a trade show, or maybe you already go to a trade show or conferences in order to get more involved with your industry, meet suppliers, frankly, scope out your enemies' booths and see what they're doing, meet with retailers. But there are many kinds of shows and they can be extraordinarily expensive. So what we're going to try to do today is explain the different types of shows and how to plan your event so that you can really work the show. Orders, distribution, and investors, these things don't just fall out of the sky. As everyone knows, success is a 24/7 job when you're a small emerging or challenger brand. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Tracy, as we kick it off, why don't you tell the folks the different types of trade shows that are out there?
Yep. So there's a couple different ones. There's industry specific shows, there's themed shows, and then there's also distributor shows. And then sometimes regional distributors and other folks will have a show as well. So, but the biggest ones are like in natural products, which we'll talk about later. And then there's a sweets and snacks and things, but we'll get into that. But yeah, so those are kind of the big ones that the types of ones that.
So Tracy, for people that are really new, what's a themed trade show?
So that would be like what I would call like sweets and snacks is a theme. So it's just uh, anything that has to do with, obviously candy or snacks or things like that. And then another one that I think would be a themed one is like a 7-Eleven franchise will have a what they call an FOAC show. And then some of the distributors will have a winter show or a spring show that's all about specific products for the holiday season, or sometimes they'll have a summer show, which is for all the summer programs.
Okay, great. So one other thing, folks, for those of you that are new, category reviews, etc., and some of these trade shows, I'm not doing any work in the area right now, but I'll bet you there are already trade shows either happening or happening very soon for holiday season because the planning is so far out. So I've been at shows in like April and everything's decked out for Christmas, and you're like, what the hell? And then you think that it's because of the lead times. So, Tracy, how does a new brand or an emerging brand where, money's always precious and should be, whether you're Procter and Gamble or Bruce and Tracy's excellent small company, how do you decide which shows to attend? Because it is a significant financial commitment.
Absolutely, you're so correct. So what we recommend really is go to a show just to walk it and to see who the attendees are and learn. And as you said, look at what your competition is doing. So we really recommend just attending the show first before you plunk down the cash to buy a booth. Because, like Bruce said, it's very expensive. You've got to ship your booth, you've got to create the booth, you've got travel, you're going to have samples and things like that. So it is a financial commitment. So we really recommend going, especially Expo West, because it is so expensive and it's so big that you want to really go and walk the show, and that'll give you an idea of what size booths are available. You can find out then what the cost is. You can find out like when do I have to commit for next year. So it's really kind of a research project, so to speak, to go to the show and walk it first. So that's what we really recommend there.
So, Tracy, are there ways to, become part of a bigger group to break down some of the costs? Like we recently covered the SFA Winter Fancy Fair, and there
Mm-hmm.
were some looked like, conglomerates where a bigger group had the umbrella and a bunch of small brands bought pieces of that.
Yeah.
Tell the folks a little bit about how that works
Yep.
and
So
some
like
examples of who those groups are. Sorry.
yeah. So the Naturally Network is one. So they'll have a specific area for the brands that are a part of that group. So like we saw at the Winter Fancy Fair in San Diego, the SFA also has a program for new and emerging brands called Makers Prep. And at the end of that program, then you get a booth for the next fancy food show. So that's another one. So those are just examples of where you can. And then Naturally Network has, regional organizations that you may be a part of, the Naturally Network New England, for example, and you'll be able to be a part of a booth that maybe have a couple different brands from the New England area, and you can save money that way as well.
Right. So that's great. A couple of other things I would add is, as Tracy said, attending a show or two as a spectator and just walking the floor is a great way to get a feel for, is this a show I really want to attend? Would it be beneficial to me? And then you can also kind of scope out what all the other brands are doing in terms of commitment. Because back to the financial commitment, you have badges, travel, that your people there. You might be entertaining some folks. So, you really need to get the pen and pencil out and add up what these costs are. The other thing, if you're going to go to a show, take full advantage. Many of the agendas are published well in advance, and there are educational sessions. Um, Make sure you take advantage of it. And if you go to a trade show, even if you're really small, bring at least a couple of people. Because if you're going to have a booth, someone should always be in the booth, at least one person. And some of the shows like Expo West, if you've never been there, the first time I went, I'd always heard how big it was. And I was like, man, I've been to big shows. It was unbelievable. So you want to make sure that someone's at your booth and someone else is walking the show and checking things out because it's a great way to meet future suppliers. All right, so now we're going to talk about how early do I have to commit and what do I need to bring or create? And as Tracy said, if you know the show you want to go to, commit early because there's usually some savings. Okay. You're going to need to design a booth, and booths can be everything from a card table with some skirting and posters to booths that you would think it's the company's home office, like conference rooms and, video all over the place, etc. But really think about the size and location of the booth that you're going to secure. Because while cheap sounds really good, you may end up in a terrible location where there's not much traffic. Or you might, most shows are pretty good about this, but you could get plunked in the middle of a bunch of other brands that have nothing to do with you. Now that's rare, but it can happen. So you don't want to be way off the beaten path. Something I've always done with the trade shows that I've had, the say in attending is I always wanted to project a little bit bigger than we were so that, people would say, oh, I've not heard of them, but they must be successful. And if you know where some of the bigger brands in your category are going to be, try to get close to them because there's going to be a lot of traffic to their booths from retailers, from suppliers. And if they're walking past yours, they might stop in, they might come back, or you might be able to tackle them and torture them for 10 minutes and tell them all about your product. Tracy, have I missed anything there?
No, I would just say chime in about the size of the booth. So a standard booth in any show is a 10 by 10, and then it goes up, uh, to that. The distributor shows, like a Unifying KeHE, they call those tabletop. So it's not 10 by 10, but you'll get, a table with a skirt, and it'll be on a much smaller scale. But a standard booth for any, trade show mostly is a 10 by 10, and then it goes up to 10 by 20 and 10 by 30, and you can get as big as you want. So just wanted to let our audience know what kind of size you're looking at.
Great. So, Tracy, what is the strategy for attending a trade show?
So for most trade shows, they are for building brand awareness. You want to be there so that you have visibility to your brand. Sometimes the shows are selling shows like Expo West, Sweets and Snacks, things like that. Those are not selling shows. Those are meeting buyers, handing out samples so that you can follow up later. But the selling shows are like the distributor shows. You and I and KeHE, they'll give you an iPad and you can take orders right there at the show. So, and then the other strategy is you can meet potential suppliers for products. So, like when we were at Winter Fancy Fair in San Diego, they had suppliers there as well. Sometimes distributors have booths, so you can meet distributors to form a relationship. And then there's also potential to meet investors as well. There's a lot of times an investor will go to a show looking for new and emerging brands to invest in. So those are just the kind of the strategies. But all in all, unless you're going to a distributor show or a specific like 7-Eleven show, they're not for selling. They are to plant seeds for future discussions.
Yeah, and one other thing I would add there, especially at Expo West or something like NACDS Annual, which is National Association of Chain Drugstores, there are also presentations, whether it's by retailers or investors or investment bankers talking about what it takes to buy or sell a brand. Attend as many of these things as possible. I'll tell you this, if you attend a trade show and you're not exhausted at the end of each day and the end of the show, you haven't worked it hard.
Yes.
You haven't worked it hard. And you should go from the minute they open that door till the minute the bell rings or the voice comes over saying the show is closed. Really work it. You've spent a ton of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like an Expo West, they have all kinds of educational programs. SFA, the Fancy Food Association, also has a lot of educational programs. So make sure you take advantage of that. And you never know who you might sit next to in one of those sessions. And then you're also going to learn a lot. So again, at Expo West, sometimes Whole Foods or some other retailers will have an educational session about how to work with them. And that's just valuable information, especially for a small emerging brand.
Very much so.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the show example. So we mentioned Expo West, which is the Natural Products Expo, always in the beginning of March, always in Anaheim. The biggest of the shows for sure, 3,500 booths, 80,000 people over 3 days. So bring some good, comfortable walking shoes because it's a huge show. And then, as we've mentioned, there's distributor shows. You've got KeHE, Unify, Chex. Those all distributors have shows. And then as Bruce mentioned, you've got NACDS. You've got the Sweets and Snacks Show, which is always in the Midwest. We've mentioned Winter Fancy Fair and also Fancy Food Show. And then we've got, some regional shows like California Grocers Association. So those are just some examples of some shows that you should definitely look into if those apply to your products.
I think that's a great list. I have nothing to add there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bruce, let's talk about conferences.
Yeah, so you might wonder a little bit, what's the difference between a trade show and a conference? Some of them they're kind of a hybrid. I would say, Expo West is kind of a hybrid just because it has so many educational sessions. But conferences are usually they're specific to an industry and they're much more information, topics, issues focused about what's happening within your category or your industry. It's more for networking, frankly, and getting up to speed on regulatory issues, for example, than it is on selling. However, as Tracy just said, you never know who you'll meet. So even if the conference is not about selling, you strike up a conversation, you get seated next to someone, you're on a discussion panel, and you might exchange contact information, and a couple of weeks later you send an email. A couple of weeks after that, they accept a telephone call or something. But it's a great chance conferences are a great chance to meet influential people and companies within your industry. It also helps to begin to build the name recognition of your brand. Um, Someone once told us that if you support your industry will support you. So
Yes.
you can't hope to be invisible and Harry Potter will magically make you successful one day. Harry's hard to hire, okay? So
Yeah.
Tracy, as we move along here, let's say, we've made a company's made the decision to get a booth at a trade show and they attended one, so they kind of know what to expect, but how do they attract people to their booth?
Yep. So number one thing is samples. You want to get people to try your product. So that's really important. Make sure you have some kind of sell sheet. So if you're a brand that's already in a Unify and KeHE, you might want to put your code numbers on there or your pricing. So definitely it's samples, it's handouts, and and then again, it's really how you attract people to your booth. Sometimes you can use some monitors, but you want to look professional and you want to look good, so people can attract. Sometimes people play music. Sometimes they'll have some kind of game or some kind of funny thing to do. So you want to definitely have samples and also a sell sheet. And the one thing I want to urge our listeners is you got to get out in the aisle because buyers will go by go by, and if they're not interested or they're in a hurry, they're not going to just automatically stop by. So if you've got samples, hang out in the aisle and hand out samples and try and make sure you're trying to bring people into your booth.
Yeah, so I would just add a couple of things. Don't bring too much printed material
Mhm.
because especially if you're dealing with retailers and buyers, they're going to get bombarded. Okay, so your information, your sexy, glossy 8-page deck will probably end up in the recycling bin as they walk out of the show or in the garbage can in their hotel. With regard to samples, as Tracy said, that's probably provided it, like everything, it's a consumable one way or another. Put it on your body, you eat it, it cleans your dishes, etc. It's I don't want to say necessary evil, but it is a significant expense. And until you've been to a couple of shows, it's better to guess high and bring too many than guess low. Another thing to consider, if it's a liquid, try to have a sample that someone can actually take home when they go
Mhm.
through TSA or check their bag. Those are some things to think about, but um, lots of booths. If you can afford it, have a couple of monitors running because motion attracts people. So whether if you have commercials, if you have influencer videos from TikTok, if you have a sales presentation that's just constantly running, hopefully with some like sales figures going from lower left to upper right. These are beautiful package shots so that people can, catch their eye and they'll come. All right, Trace, pushing on. How do I run an effective booth? I now have the right stuff there. I have a good location. How do I make the show work for me?
Yep. So, a couple ideas or things that you want to think about. One is make sure you have 2 to 3 people there so that, as Bruce said, your booth is always covered. So, if one person wants to take a lunch break or need to, do something or go to one of the educational, you always have somebody there at the booth at all times. Because again, you're making a significant investment and you don't want to miss a target buyer walking by because you ran off, to get lunch. So make sure that you do that. Another big thing is make sure a lot of the shows have an app and it'll tell you all of the educational programs that are going on, the times where they at, and then they'll have all the booths and the brands. So make sure you go through that so you can, if you want to scope out your competition, you can look at where they are and you can go by and see them. So one of the things a lot of times now, especially with Expo West, buyers don't make appointments. The show is just too big to do that. But there are big retailers, for example, Expo West coming up. I know Safeway Albertsons, Whole Foods, you can apply to have a meeting with them, a 10-minute meeting, and they'll have a room and you submit your brand. And if you're accepted, then you get a meeting there. But most buyers do not take meetings at Expo West anymore because it's just, too big.
Yeah, so Tracy's getting all choked up. He gets excited about Expo West. Another thing to do is continually review the list of attendees. So if you've paid for a booth, you're going to have access to who's coming. And that's really important. And it's updated all the time. And sometimes the retailers will not have their names posted till the last possible minute. Okay. So always be checking. And as Tracy said, a lot of people won't give you an official, I'll be there at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. No, they're going to swing by or something. But send out that note, whether it's a supplier, a retailer, another brand that you think might make a partnership, make that connection. And for goodness sakes, don't send out some mass email that's created by Chat GPT. People can see through what's not personalized, okay? And the minute I get those, I just delete them. I'm like, okay, I'm not in the cement business. Why did you send that to me? So take a second and those top 20, 30 people you might really want to touch base with, just send them like a 2 sentence thing that proves that you took the time to personalize it.
Yeah,
Anything
absolutely.
else there, Tracy?
Um, uh, let's talk a little bit about the lead retrieval too. So some of the bigger
Yes.
shows have a lead retrieval that'll tell you so that you can scan their badge and get their information. So you might want to also invest in that as well.
Yep. And one other point here, as we talk about all the meetings, we've kind of driven that point home. You have the multiple people at your booth, and a lot of times these educational sessions will be before the booth time or meeting time at tables at certain conferences start. Split up so that you cover as much as possible. If you have three people from your company at a meeting, don't all go sit together at one
Yeah.
presentation. That's not the best use of your time. Another great thing to do is if you know someone who knows someone at a show like this that can make a soft introduction for you, it's much better to just, say a quick hello in person than be one of the, 65,000 emails that roll into the Whole Foods buyers email box, the week after the show. But intros are key, and these shows and conferences are a great environment for low pressure introductions. You're not shoving a 10-page deck in their face and a pen and an order pad or your iPad telling them they need to order right now. That's not how it rolls.
Now,
Um, Tracy, anything else there? I mean, basically, just be smart, man. Don't be annoying. But if Tracy knows someone I want to meet, say, hey, Tracy, can you introduce me to Frank? I've been trying to meet him. And just take the introduction, say what you do, and then back off so that Frank doesn't think you're a lunatic.
I think the word that I would use a lot in these shows is networking. You want to meet as many people as you can, make as many connections. The CPG industry is a community, and it's all about sometimes who you know than what you know. So I think that's the best advice we can give you when it comes to that.
Yeah, so Tracy, a road to retail, it's one of our commandments here. So tell us about the importance of follow-up and how specific you should be with people you've met.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't send an email like during the show as a follow-up because they're not going to respond. It'll get buried. So probably a week to probably 2 weeks would be a best time to follow up. Hey, it was great meeting you. This is our brand. Attach your sell sheet and then ask, hey, can I set up a call to talk to you about my brand story and what we're doing and the success that we've had. So 2 weeks, but follow up, follow up, follow up. We cannot emphasize that enough. If you go to a show, and you don't follow up, you have totally wasted your money. So
And
really, it is seed planting and then follow up.
And the other thing I would add in your follow up, try to make it, especially if you spent even 30 seconds with someone, try to make it a little personal so that one, it helps jog their memory of who you are. And it also shows you were paying attention.
Mhm.
Hey, Frank, great to meet you at Expo West. I can't believe your cousin played in the Super Bowl. That's awesome. I mean, wow, the guy actually remembered something. Or
Yes.
you made an interesting point about XYZ when you spoke in the session about bringing ingredients in from foreign countries. I mean, show that you're paying attention because if you show they matter to you, you'll matter a little bit more to them. All right, Tracy, we're heading into closing points. What are the things that we want the folks to really take away here?
Really, these shows are about networking, meeting people, building brand awareness, getting samples. And one other thing I'll throw out is a lot of times buyers won't take your sample because they don't have any more room in their suitcase, or they've already had 10 pieces of candy before they got to your booth. So just say, hey, can I give you a sample to take home to try, or do you want to try it here? If they say no, just say, hey, this is your opportunity to get all their contact information. Great, I understand you're full or you don't have any more room. Can I get your address or your card so that I can send you samples after the show?
Or at the candy show, you can give out coupons for a free dental visit if they've eaten candy for a week. So
Exactly.
the other thing to really make sure you take advantage of, a lot of these trade shows and conferences, they realize that it's a commitment and it's expensive. So for many, they have these first time training or orientation sessions where they kind of coach you through how
Mhm.
it's going to go and what you should do. And sometimes they'll like NACDS annual used to have a small reception for first time attendees, and they would have a retailer there, or they would have someone interesting to also talk about some issue confronting the industry. But they also assigned you like a guardian angel to kind of coach you through what's going to happen for these 4 days. So as you consider what shows to attend or conferences, really spend the time on their websites and go through the agendas. And if you want, reach out because these conferences, I mean, they're paid to have people come to the conference. So they're really good about responding to inquiries and contact us. So don't be shy asking questions. Tracy, anything else here?
No, again, when you're sending that follow up, make sure you are saying, what your ask is. So buyer comes by and says, "Oh yeah, this is interesting," or "This is the kind of product I'm looking for." Here's another thing they may say, "Hey, next month is my category review." So definitely then follow up and say, "Hey, it was great meeting you at the show. I understand you're reviewing, sparkling beverages next month. I'd like to get on your calendar to submit for that category review. And can we set up a call? And in the meantime, here is, our sales sheet. And can I get your address, or if you already have it, so I can send you samples, but we'd like to participate in that category review."
Yeah, one other thing I would add is if you're a little bit bigger or if you're clever, you might try to have a social hour to
Mhm.
try to attract some buyers. Now, again, as Tracy was speaking earlier, sometimes there's consortiums or groups of brands that'll get together and five or six of them will sponsor a happy hour or the night before a conference starts, they'll do something. So you might be able to join up with some other smaller brands, or if there's a happy hour or gathering, you might be able to call up and say, "Hey, can we get to be part of this?" So you get your name on the invite, and it'll cost you a little money, but then you're not carrying all the freight yourself. So that can also work. And if you have the money, you might even see if you can get a retailer who'll speak. Then other brands will come. So if you're a service supplier, if you're a package design firm and you can get someone to come in and talk about something that's, tied to that, you might be able to land 10 brands at your little reception. So there's all kinds of things. If I had to leave you with one other thing to think about, if you make the commitment to attend these shows or conferences, it's expensive. Work it. Work
Yes.
it from the opening bell until after the last time the bell rings. And then, as Tracy already went through, your follow up will really make or break you. Okay. So now you've busted your hiney for the 4 days and you have a laptop full of things to do them. And especially if you made a commitment like, "I'll get this to you Tuesday," get it to them Tuesday. Don't be a gonna guy. You're gonna do stuff, but then you don't. Tracy, I think we've exhausted this. Are we ready for the big finish, or do you have any
We
parting
are,
words
we
of
are.
wisdom?
Yes, absolutely. So great episode, and hope our listeners learned something today. So continue to follow us on Spotify, on Apple, also on LinkedIn, and also on YouTube channel. And we post these episodes every Tuesday. And also check out our website, www.road, the number two retail. And all our links are always in the show notes. So make sure you click on there and subscribe.
All right. Good luck out there, folks. And it's trade show season. Go build those brands.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.